You wake up, check your phone, and immediately feel behind. The emails have stacked up overnight. The calendar is already filled with tasks you haven't prepared for. You tell yourself, I'll get to it after breakfast, but by the time the morning is gone, your energy has slipped, and your day feels out of control. You've convinced yourself you're disciplined, but the pattern repeats anyway. This isn't about laziness, it's about a hidden habit quietly controlling every decision you make. The habit isn't visible. It doesn't announce itself, doesn't make noise, and doesn't come with a dramatic payoff. Yet it dictates whether you finish projects, manage money responsibly, maintain your health, or hold meaningful social boundaries. Every small decision, every delayed start, every rationalization compounds silently, shaping the outcomes of your day before you even notice. Here's the truth, you can have all the motivation in the world, all the planning, all the inspirational reminders, and still fail. Why? Because discipline is not a burst of energy, it's a pattern embedded in identity. The single habit we're examining today determines whether you consistently execute or drift into inconsistency. By the end of this video, you'll see exactly what that habit is, why it's been controlling you unnoticed, and how to shift your identity so that your discipline becomes automatic. You won't have to negotiate with emotions or wait for motivation. You'll have clarity on the internal mechanisms that turn small daily actions into unshakable standards. You don't need to feel like doing it. You need a structure that acts before emotion or hesitation interferes. This habit enforces consistency, responsibility, and momentum across work, health, finances, and relationships. Understanding it gives you control over the invisible forces that undermine your days. Once you recognize it, the drift stops, and execution becomes inevitable. The habit that governs every area of your life is simple in concept but hidden in execution. To master it, you need to see the internal mechanisms at work. There are 4 shifts that make this habit actionable and automatic. 1. Immediate accountability. Most people delay action by negotiating with themselves. Thoughts like, I'll start after lunch, or I deserve a break first, are examples of self-licensing bias. Immediate accountability removes that negotiation. Action comes first, rationalization comes later. 2. 3. Micro-consistency enforcement. Discipline is invisible in grand gestures. It lives in the repeated small actions you take daily. Skipping a single check-in, one exercise set, or a minor financial reconciliation might seem inconsequential, but these gaps shape your identity. The habit enforces daily micro-consistency so that your identity aligns with action, not intention. 4. 5. Emotional neutrality on execution. Most people wait until they feel like it. Emotional fatigue loops convince the mind that action must align with mood. Mastery separates action from feeling. The habit executes independently of how you feel. Paying bills, completing work, exercising, these actions proceed regardless of emotion. 6. 7. Environmental trigger alignment. Your surroundings cue your decisions. Clutter, open tabs, constant notifications, or a disorganized workspace silently sabotage habit formation. Aligning your environment with intended actions reduces friction and makes the habit automatic. 8. Consider a practical example, someone trying to stick to a budget. After a long day at work, they feel tired and justify a small purchase, I'll adjust next week. They fail, not from lack of desire, but because they haven't enforced micro-consistency, immediate accountability, or environmental alignment. The small triggers, the wallet, the phone alerts, the visible spending apps, prompt emotional negotiation. By applying these 4 shifts, the habit forms automatically, removing room for excuses. You can see the pattern clearly now: accountability, consistency, emotional neutrality, and environment alignment. Each mechanism reinforces the others. When they operate together, action becomes default. Excuses fade before they influence behavior. Recognizing this structure transforms vague frustration into leverage, into a repeatable system where discipline emerges naturally without relying on fleeting motivation or willpower. Execution begins with immediate accountability. Most people negotiate with themselves, thinking, "I'll start later," or "I deserve a break first." These internal negotiations are a form of self-licensing bias. They allow delay and rationalization, quietly undermining action before it begins. Immediate accountability removes this negotiation by creating a rule: act first, rationalize later. Consider a workplace scenario. A manager has a critical report due. Instead of waiting for the right moment, they set a 15-minute window to write the first section. Resistance appears immediately: distraction, fatigue, minor tasks demanding attention, but the microaction is completed. That single act triggers momentum for the day. Rohn said, "Discipline is the bridge between goals and accomplishment." Immediate accountability builds that bridge daily. Identity implication is profound. Each time you act before negotiating, you strengthen the self-image of someone who executes. You shift from "I intend to do" into "I do." Over time, this habit rewires your automatic response: action precedes excuses. Discipline lives in repetition, not occasional effort. Microconsistency enforcement ensures small actions are completed daily, forming the backbone of identity. Skipped microtasks accumulate silently, weakening standards without immediate feedback. Example: someone improving fitness. Running 5 minutes, lifting a single set, or tracking nutrition may seem trivial. But the cumulative effect of these actions compounds into measurable change. Microconsistency converts intention into habit, making execution inevitable. One missed session may feel small, but it weakens the link between behavior and identity. Identity implication: the repeated microactions define the person you are becoming. If your daily pattern is one of follow-through, your identity solidifies as someone disciplined. If small actions are skipped, your identity subtly shifts toward inconsistency, regardless of motivation. Waiting to feel ready is a trap. Emotions fluctuate: fatigue, stress, boredom, irritation. Most let these feelings dictate action. Emotional neutrality separates execution from mood. The habit enforces completion regardless of how you feel. Scenario: paying bills or managing finances. You may feel stressed, distracted, or tired, but delaying increases risk and anxiety. Acting neutrally, processing payments, reconciling accounts, becomes automatic. Over time, the identity shifts. You become someone who reliably executes responsibilities, independent of emotional state. Grounded anecdote: a colleague reported avoiding financial chaos by reconciling their accounts every evening, no matter the day's mood. Within weeks, stress decreased, and control became habitual, not forced. Identity reinforced itself through repeated neutral action. Environment cues decisions. Distractions, clutter, and competing stimuli trigger negotiation and avoidance. Aligning surroundings with intended behavior reduces mental friction, allowing the habit to operate automatically. Scenario: a writer wants daily output. By clearing the desk of irrelevant items, closing social media, and leaving only necessary tools visible, writing becomes the default action. Friction is minimized, momentum maintained. Over time, identity shifts. Execution becomes expected, automatic, unremarkable. Grounded anecdote: another colleague left only a notebook and pen on their desk each morning. Within weeks, draft completion improved dramatically. Motivation was unnecessary, the environment silently guided action. These four mechanisms: immediate accountability, microconsistency, emotional neutrality, and environment alignment, work together. Each reinforces the other. When applied consistently, the habit that controls your life becomes automatic. Execution no longer relies on willpower, effort, or motivation. Identity becomes the driver. Discipline is often misunderstood as effort or struggle. In reality, it is identity expressed through repeated action. The habit we've examined: immediate accountability, microconsistency, emotional neutrality, and environmental alignment, is not a heroic surge, it's the architecture that makes action inevitable. Consider compounding. One microaction today influences the next, which shapes tomorrow's decisions. This is invisible at first, but over weeks and months, it defines who you are. Skipped actions weaken identity, completed actions reinforce it. The small, repeated choices accumulate silently, producing results that feel effortless only because the underlying habit has solidified. Responsibility and self-respect are inseparable here. When your daily actions align with your standards, discipline is no longer imposed, it is lived. You stop negotiating with moods, cravings, and rationalizations. Instead, you execute because that is who you are. Every area of life is affected: work, health, finances, relationships, long-term planning. The person who applies this habit automatically becomes someone who produces consistently, makes sound decisions, maintains energy, and honors commitments. There is no drama, no struggle, no question of motivation. Identity, reinforced by habit, does the work. This clarity is liberating. You understand why some people appear effortlessly disciplined while others flounder despite talent or ambition. Execution isn't about bursts of willpower, it's about structuring your actions so that discipline is embedded in who you are. The invisible habit we've detailed gives leverage over inconsistency, over drift, over the hidden forces that erode your life. By applying these mechanisms daily, you convert effort into identity, randomness into compounding order, and fleeting motivation into automatic execution. The habit becomes the silent engine of your life. The habit that controls your life is invisible until applied. It is not motivation, luck, or external pressure. It is microdiscipline executed consistently, reinforced by accountability, consistency, emotional neutrality, and environment alignment. You do not have to chase inspiration. You do not have to summon effort for every task. By practicing this habit daily, silently, without fanfare, you establish a standard that governs your actions automatically. Your day, your decisions, your outcomes bend toward reliability because your identity has been anchored in execution. When internalized, the habit repeats naturally. Your work, health, finances, and relationships reflect this invisible structure. You no longer negotiate with excuses. You no longer wait for motivation. The person you have become acts by default. Discipline has become who you are. It is not a challenge to overcome, a task to push through, or a goal to chase. It is the foundation of every choice, every action, every outcome. And with it in place, consistent execution is no longer optional, it is inevitable. By applying these mechanisms daily, you convert effort into identity, randomness into compounding order, and fleeting motivation into automatic execution. The habit becomes the silent engine of your life. The habit that controls your life is invisible until applied. It is not motivation, luck, or external pressure. It is microdiscipline executed consistently, reinforced by accountability, consistency, emotional neutrality, and environment alignment. You do not have to chase inspiration. You do not have to summon effort for every task. By practicing this habit daily, silently, without fanfare, you establish a standard that governs your actions automatically. Your day, your decisions, your outcomes bend toward reliability because your identity has been anchored in execution. When internalized, the habit repeats naturally. Your work, health, finances, and relationships reflect this invisible structure. You no longer negotiate with excuses. You no longer wait for motivation. The person you have become acts by default. Discipline has become who you are. It is not a challenge to overcome, a task to push through, or a goal to chase. It is the foundation of every choice, every action, every outcome. And with it in place, consistent execution is no longer optional, it is inevitable.